One Piece chapter 1123. I gotta say it, man. Like, my respect for Vegapunk, it kept going up as this arc was kind of transpiring. But now, oh my God. Like, oh my God. This, like, the fact that this dude was able to figure out that York was the snitch, that she betrayed them, and then to come up with a countermeasure and then have it set up where all these things, he was like 100 steps ahead and had it where nobody could find out. But then you have Sanji of all people put the pieces together, and even though he don't know exactly how it happened, he's like, Vegapunk, you knew, didn't you? I listened to what you were saying, and you were having that whole thing of like, my death is gonna cause something. It's like, fam, you knew something. Sanji's observant. I meme Sanji and everything, but like this chapter, it raised my respect for Vegapunk a lot more, but it also just made me look at Sanji and go, man, I love that motherfucker. So let me back up, man, because I'm gonna go through this. I'm gonna go through this on the reaction side. So we open up the chapter and we see how the Seraphim, they're all like, hey, everybody wake up. We got to get out of here because the Straw Hats are escaping. And Dorry and Brogy, they're like, okay, fam, it's time to jump now because all of them are knocked out. And they remark how, and this is the Shanks mention, they remark how, oh yeah, like this is even stronger Haki than what Shanks can do. They call them red hairs. And Luffy calls out to Emet and says, thank you basically for saving them. And then that's where we see the celebrations, and we see Bonnie. She's completely exhausted. We got Luffy completely drained. Nami's checking on him. She's cradling him and etc. Lucky motherfucker, if I don't say so myself. And then, yeah, because that got's like right there. It's like, yo, they're like, oh my God. You are lucky as hell, Luffy. But then you have that moment where Sanji is talking to Vegapunk, and I guess Vegapunk truly is dead. Like the eyes and everything are completely like half his face look like it's blown, or not blown off, but like bloodied out and everything. And Sanji's like, back then, something you said doesn't sit right with me. This is everything you wanted, wasn't it? And I didn't hear everything, but you were saying some outrageous stuff. And at first, my reaction when I heard that, I went, well, Sanji would know a little bit more than the other Straw Hats, just given who his father was. And so that's where I'm like, okay, maybe there's a little bit more with Sanji. Oda could be kind of setting up another redemption arc for Sanji, because after Whole Cake Island, it kind of feels like Sanji's character has been kind of torn down. Like, we know like why he has this thing with women and why he likes cooking, etc. But at the same time, yeah, the moment at Wano where he was blubbering like a little bitch, Nico Robin saved me, which I get why he couldn't hit the women, etc., especially Black Maria. I get that, but it kind of feels like if Oda went that far to deconstruct Sanji in this way after Whole Cake Island, then he happened to be there with Vegapunk, Oda's got something else planned for Sanji. It might just be me coping and hoping, but I kind of feel like that's where that's going. And so that's where we jump in and we get the flashback, and we see how Vegapunk is with some of the other Vegapunks, and he's going like, somebody stole the mother flame, because I'm looking at these readings and there's deception going on here. It's supposed to look like everything's normal, but I'm seeing irregularities, and they jump to the conclusion, okay, like it has to be Lilith that is the one that betrayed us and stole the mother flame, or rather a large portion of it. And that's where we learn that like the Vegapunks, they were placed into stealth mode. That way some of this stuff could be shut off. That way they could get down to the true information. A week later, we find out that they learned that it was York. York is asleep and oblivious, little traitorous ass bitch. And you have the moment where they reveal that like the information was synced in the Punk records. It's all dummy records. The footage, the transponder snails, everything's been compromised. Vegapunk's putting everything together, and he's running his own diagnostics, and he's like, that's why Cipher Pol was sent there. That's why CP0 is there. That's why there are all these checkups that are going on. They have the transmission to the elders that's happening. They're learning about York making her deal. Then he's looking at what happened with Lulucia, and you have that revelation by Vegapunk where he's like, that's what it's for. I can't prove it, but they have to have a weapon, and an ancient weapon. They have to be using the Mother Flame to do it. And as this is going on, Vegapunk, you see the burden of knowledge and the burden of what his experiments have basically been used for, the responsibility he feels, both for the betrayal as well as for what his research was used for and all the lives that are lost, and knowing that if he speaks out, he's going to die, and he has to come up with a different way, and he comes up with that contingency. And I like how, as he places the blame on himself, he's still forward thinking enough to say, like, after I die, there has to be something else that lives on, which is the truth. He says that I cannot die for nothing. We can't flee from here because the world government will never allow us to live, which it makes sense. Like O'Hara, like the people there, they were massacred for that reason. And so Vegapunk basically says, like, hey, we have 22 years of research. We have a situation where we can maximize my voice. We can spark that flame that is needed to basically start a revolution. He doesn't call it a revolution, but that's kind of what's being implied here. And he also talks about how the clouds are going to be needed that are coming out the factory for mankind's survival. So he's already predicting that there's going to be another underwater event potentially take place. And as they're going through and they're trying to come up with their contingency plan, they meet outside of the Emet Iron Giant body, and York, being the snake that she is like, hey, what are you guys doing here? What's Stella doing? And that moment there, it kind of makes you realize why York was able to figure out that the transponder snail was there, because she just looks like she took it at face value and didn't think anything of it. But as she was racking her brain under pressure, you just see that she also, because she is Vegapunk, she also has the cleverness. And so we find out why Vegapunk did it, because nobody would have thought to look at the Iron Giant for the location of the transponder snail. And we see how he's recorded his message to be played after his death. And that's where he goes in. He makes a very bold proclamation. We have to wipe out our memories. And he's smart enough to leave a message to himself, and it has just enough information to where it's a situation where they don't know what's gonna happen, but they have just enough where they know to basically not overreact and just trust the fact that, hey, you know, if you had prior knowledge to the stuff that's getting ready to happen, you would come up with contingency. So I need you to trust the me who wrote this letter to just believe that everything's taken care of and just go about things as normal. And so as that's happening, we jump over and we see that CP6 has landed. And then we also see how the Straw Hats are here. Bonnie's here. We have Kizaru and Saturn. They have showed up. And you have that moment where, like, Vegapunk's like, okay, we got to save Bonnie. That kind of goes back to the Kuma situation. And that's where we get the conversation with Sanji and with Vegapunk, where Vegapunk is like, you know, I feel like my death is going to cause something to happen. And I think it's at that moment he probably realized that he had something set up to get the truth out. Because in the letter that he left for himself, he lets it be known that the world government does know about your research into the Void Century. So I think he already knew that he recorded a message. But the interesting thing here is that he tells Sanji, because he has to know what the One Piece is. Or as a brilliant scientist as he is, he has to have a damn good hypothesis of what it is. Because he specifically tells Sanji, I want your crew, out of everyone that's searching for it, I want your crew to be the one that finds it. And it's because Luffy and his crew and etc., they are the true harbingers of change. And it kind of builds on what we had on the last chapter, where Kobe is like, I can't let your dream come true. This is all set up. It's brilliant setup, and I love it. Oda has continued to just tighten the threads on multiple plot lines while also opening up more. If this is the end of the Egghead arc, which I kind of feel like this should be the end of it, because, like, they're clearly celebrating. So, like, usually when you have that celebration like that, that's it for the arc. So I kind of feel like if this is the conclusion for Egghead, I would have to sit down and write out all the arcs of One Piece. Now I have to go back and reread this arc start to finish now, but pistol in my head right now, I would probably say Egghead's a top 6 arc for me. That's changed a little bit. It slid down a little because I want to kind of factor in recency bias, but Egghead's a top 6 for me. Like, after we had just come off of a big long arc in the Wano arc, for this to be a transition arc and to be a setup arc and for it to be this fucking good, Oda cooking up some nice shit, man. And like, that's gonna be my chapter question for you guys, which is, if this is the end of the arc, which it might not be, but if this is the end of the arc, where do you rank Egghead in terms of the best arcs in One Piece? Again, for me, I have it top 6, but while you wait for the next blind reaction, click here to show some love to the newest Everything One Piece Explained video, or if you want to join me on my journey, going through every One Piece chapter, chapter by chapter from the very beginning, you really want to click here on the right to check out that blind reaction playlist where I review One Piece, react to One Piece, chapter by chapter as a brand new reader who hadn't been spoiled on the manga.